What up, what up, what up? It is Monday, October 7th, and it is the first day of oral arguments at the Supreme Court of the United States for its new session. SCOTUS resumes after ethical concerns among some justices and after being under fire for several decisions over the past few years. And today on Reported, legal expert Anita Allen joins me later on to talk all about it. Just before the court's summer break, some of its high-profile decisions from last session included a 6-3 ruling in May that South Carolina can continue using a congressional map that a lower court ruled unconstitutional due to the designated voting zones, quote, bleaching of African-American voters. On June 13th, the court unanimously ruled to uphold FDA guidelines for distributing a commonly used abortion pill by mail and telemedicine. A couple weeks later, on July 1st, the court ruled 6-3 that former President Donald Trump is partly immune from being prosecuted on charges that he acted to subvert the 2020 election. These decisions are, of course, after the court reversed Roe v. Wade in 2022 and affirmative action last summer. In November 2023, the court adopted a code of ethics for the first time amid public outcry and accusations that Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas failed to report trips financed by wealthy Republican donors. All of this is the context from which SCOTUS enters its new session. I asked some Black voters in New York City what is their perception of the court.
It's not very good because, like I said, they overturned Roe versus Wade. Clarence Thomas is he's just out for getting money, by having influence brought on him. And it's just not very good right now for the country. It really, really isn't. I think there should be more of a balance.
I hope there's change. I really do, because with the way that it's currently is, I'm not very confident in this country, if I'm being honest.
What change do you want to see on the Supreme Court?
I definitely want to see, I guess, more diversity and just like younger people in general. It's always like people not of this generation, obviously, but it's like way older than I think it needs to be. Like I feel like younger people need to be on it, because honestly, the decisions that they're making doesn't really affect them. It affects us, the younger people, because it's things that we're going to have to be living with.
Here to sift it all apart is legal expert Anita Allen, a law professor at the University of Pennsylvania who specializes in constitutional law, civil rights, and ethics. Anita, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Randy. It's great to chat with you.
Let's start with this context in total. What does this background information say to you about the current court?
I think the court is in trouble. Trouble from the point of view of public opinion. The confidence in the court is definitely faltering because it seems so blatantly political. I think that the court is struggling to find a jurisprudence of privacy, of reproductive rights, of First Amendment values, and other important principles, such as the 14th Amendment principles, that really makes sense in our current environment. And this is causing a lot of controversy, both inside the court and also outside the court.
It's one of the reasons why the voters I spoke to they have a really low confidence in the Supreme Court right now. What do you think the court can do to win over more public trust? I think ordinary people often wonder, how can it be that constitutional law changes when the Constitution stays the same? Right. And I think the only answer to that question is it can change because politics change, and because our court is not insulated from politics. We have to keep in mind that our Supreme Court is supposed to be objective and neutral, but how can it be perfectly that? Because a political entity, namely the president, a political entity, namely Congress, they're the ones who get people under the court, and they have definitely a political agenda. So there's no possibility we can have a court that's going to be completely neutral. So given that, the judges themselves have a deep ethical responsibility to rise above the politics of the moment and to really think about what is in the best interest of Americans, and not just some Americans, the wealthy ones or the white ones or the men, but also the women and the poor and the disenfranchised and the immigrants and all of us. So we just basically need a more deeply just and ethical court. But it's up to the individual justices to rise above politics. Our system, there's nothing structural to prevent the court from being political. And that's why the law can change when the Constitution stays the same.
So let's take both forks in the road here of what may happen to the court if Trump is elected and if Harris is elected. So starting with Harris first, what do you expect to see from the court under her tenure?
Well, as you know, the new president only gets to appoint or recommend new judges, nominate new judges, if a judge steps down. We have life tenure. So it's possible that during the entire presidency of Kamala Harris, that there would be no opportunity for her to nominate a justice. And so she couldn't have that kind of direct impact on the court. If Trump is elected, the same thing holds. He might not be able to appoint any new justices. There are, however, enough justices in the court who are at or near retirement age, so we could have some openings coming up. And if they do open up, then the question would be, how would the Kamala Harris or Donald Trump seek to fill those seats? I think we know what Donald Trump would do. He would try to further increase the conservative hold, the grip of ideology on the court. And I think that what Kamala Harris would try to do would be to restore some balance on the court by appointing a more diverse, inclusive, and also a more liberal, frankly, court.
Yeah, and the rumblings you were referring to about retirement is Justice Alito and Thomas. And should they step down if Trump is elected, he'll likely, appoint someone who shares those same viewpoints. So what big cases are on the docket for this session that we should be looking out for?
Well, the first Monday in October is always an exciting time for Supreme Court watchers. And this year, there are a couple of issues that are going to be foremost on the agenda. One of them is a case involving transgender rights. And this decision will decide whether or not a state can ban the use of gender-affirming surgery and treatments for young people. Very controversial case about a very controversial topic, and we'll have to wait and see how the court comes out. I'm not ready to offer a prediction on that, but it's going to be a very important decision that will affect the lives of many, many transgender youth in America. Another important area is going to be gun control, because this whole issue of whether people can sell these sort of ghost guns that are used in sort of kits to make guns that can then be hard to trace is something which we should be able to strike down. And some states would want to ban those, and some states want to allow them. And the Supreme Court will have to decide whether or not those ghost gun laws can be upheld. And then finally, I think of a great importance is the First Amendment and privacy, which is an area that I am especially interested in. And the issue there is, we want to protect young people from inappropriate websites. And we have laws that, in fact, do seek to protect young people, but those laws are not perfect. So the issue in an upcoming case involving free speech is whether or not laws in Texas that will put age restrictions on access to certain websites will also prevent adults from accessing websites, or prevent them from accessing unless they're willing to give up personal information that identifies them. This is a big problem. So I think these three areas, gun control, First Amendment, free speech rights and privacy, and the continuing concerns about transgender rights are going to be the big issues for the court coming up this term.
You can catch our full conversation on my YouTube channel, Reported with Randy Richardson. We talk about reform options and how the court can win over more public trust. And you also will hear more from the voters I spoke to.